Hi, good morning, Vishwas. Thank
Good
you
morning.
a lot for joining.
No problem.
Welcome to my channel.
Thank you. Thanks
Can
for
we start
inviting
with
me.
a small introduction from you?
Yes. I'm Vishwas. I work as an engineering manager at a startup called Anstack. The company basically is a serverless consulting firm where we do end-to-end product development, architecture, consulting on serverless, AWS, and other cloud platforms as well. And my area of interest and work would be mostly around full stack development, AWS, a bit of Google and Azure cloud services.
Okay, so you like AWS more than that.
It's not about liking, but the clients we get as well as the tech we work with, like
Mhm.
basically serverless, is at least in my limited knowledge is more matured in AWS, and most of the clients already have biases towards AWS, so we
Okay,
don't tend to pitch them another cloud service and go with that.
okay, that's nice. So, working there as an engineering manager,
Yes, yes.
what is the typical role of the engineering manager? What is your work
We
experience?
have. I mean, it might differ from what other organizations do. So our goal was like to make it a mentorship hierarchy rather than a management hierarchy. The typically it would be to handle projects. What I mean is, so there would be a team from us working for a project or a client or a product, right? And my role would be to make them understand what they are building and help them technically, rather than having a managerial approach to control or to monitor people how they are doing. It's rather to be held technically, mentor them, and help them make like individual. So the definition of individual contributor should not be limited to they get a task, they work on it, and then at the end of the day they just deliver. Like everybody should get enough maturity to understand what they are doing, why they are doing it, right? That's kind of the role, which is bit vague if you think of it, but that's kind of where we are trying to do.
Okay, so basically, you take the team through the project.
Yes, yes, true.
And how is it like Handstack does projects for several customers at the same time?
Yeah, yep. As it's a service company, so we have projects consulting from like people with the tech team. So our team works with the tech team of the other companies, or they don't have a tech team, so we work like for the entire end-to-end product development for the other companies. It's varying from startups, enterprises, and all of that.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I was just browsing through your LinkedIn profile.
Mhm.
I see you have a lot of contribution to the open source community. On your GitHub, you have
Yeah, I wouldn't say a lot because I've been not doing much, but like in terms of, so the contribution is a bit, what's it, uh, maybe more to use at this time. Like I tend to like the open source community and try to help in terms of say maybe raising an issue or getting through it. But I don't think I've done much of a code contribution to open source libraries or
okay,
frameworks out there. But I tend the like from my colleges, I have already had the idea of this open source and how obviously if you look outside, it's mostly been the open source communities or open source project that's been helping to build end-to-end product, not the enterprise
okay,
or the other companies, right? So that's kind of where I like it.
okay. Like you have contributed to Free Code Camp. You have contributed to, and I saw there was some other repositories where you have contributed.
I mean, so it's mostly been like at least now I'm trying to contribute on a rigorous or a religious basis, which trying to again not there yet, but previously it has been like especially with I think my first commit to any open source project out there was Free Code Camp because I was learning through their platform, and whenever I found like basic, even like the problem with people, right? Open source contribution doesn't mean you have to write code for somebody else or you have to solve some complex problem that they are trying to solve. It could be just basic typo, like their solution platform had some issues or there was some solution that was missing some validation. So I just went ahead. I saw the issue out there. I just solved it. I just created a PR, and they were really welcome to just merge that. And That
Okay.
was kind of my first commit out there, and I kind of liked the platform, so I continued like helping them with documentation or anything, any small thing that I could do.
Okay. So you just cloned the code, made the change, and committed it, and created the PR.
Yes, yes,
You didn't
yes.
ask anybody before doing that.
No, no. I mean, I like that's the problem, right? Like, uh, it's out there, and there are like thousands of people committing. So, again, this links back to why the beginner developers hesitate, or we have that hesitation. Like, what would
Yeah.
people think?
Yeah.
Will they judge my code and all of that? Like, so I asked my friends, like, I just found a typo or some fix. So
Mm.
I just made a PR. I'm thinking to make a PR. They're like, go ahead, why not? So I'm
Oh.
like, okay. I wasn't expecting it to be merged. Somebody commented, thanks for the first contribution and all of that. And they just merged it. So that
Oh,
was
wow.
kind of like a amazing moment for me. And I never thought some random person out there in the world would appreciate that.
Okay. And you're also sponsoring Free Code Camp.
Yeah, I'm doing a small bit just because entirety of what I work, not entirety, like at least good amount of JavaScript which I learned is through code free code camp. So
Okay.
I thought I'll have to give it back
Yeah.
somehow.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And you also have some research papers on
It yeah,
AIs.
it was so it was mostly like part of the academia. So
Okay.
I had written this is if you think of it now, it's literally the very common project that people do, which is sentiment analysis on Twitter. But at that time, I found it to be, for some reason,
Mm.
like a very challenging thing to do, which wasn't that challenging, but like we were dealing with some machine learning or basic of sentiment analysis as part of the academia in college. So I was happened to look at some repository which had done some sentiment analysis. So I kind of took that as a reference and went through the Twitter API. So it was basic a keyword search. You go there, you put a keyword or a hashtag. It fetches through the Twitter API. It fetches all the Twitter. It
Mm.
goes through that sentiment analysis framework and gives you like this Twitter is neutral. It is talking about negative or something basic stuff. But
Okay.
if you go to GitHub and Google sentiment analysis Twitter, or you would
Hundreds.
literally get thousands of repositories like that.
Yeah. And I also saw your blogs. It's a very nice, well-made blog.
Thank
You are
you. Thank you.
nice.
Yeah. So that kind of like the version that you see is kind of the version 2 of how I used to write blogs. It kind of dates back to when I was in, I think, 11th and 12th, where I was like writing something about some softwares, like I use Photoshop, I liked it, or I played this game. I kind of do that, which is not at all grammatically correct or nothing professional. That time I used to do that. Then, for obvious reasons, it got pulled down. There was copyright issues and all of that. I literally copy pasted couple of
Okay.
content from other sites. Then things move along. I graduated. I started working for Infosys, and I had at some point I had some time, and I thought, why not continue doing this? Then I pulled, I got so it kind of also motivated me, which I think 90% of the developer relate is I bought a domain. I didn't know what to do with it, so I'm like, okay, let me create a portfolio site, and why not also start a blog, which I spent good amount of time to set up it. Then I'm like, will I write or not? I'm not sure. But at some point, I took the guts to start writing some things. It's technical, it's non-tech. There are a lot of
Mm.
vague stuff there. So I don't know if people liked it, but it's there out there.
Okay. So how many visitors do you have? Do you track that?
I used to track it until a point. Then there used to be like, I mean, there are initial posts which took like 100,000 views. Then at some point, I removed all the tracking from the website. It doesn't make any sense for me to track. And I mean, so it is bit in perspective based, but at some point, uh, like if you see it can demotivate you. Like if you see the numbers, okay, you spent 2 days writing something and that did not go well. it might demotivate. I'm like, okay, I'll keep writing. If it is BS, it is BS. If it is good, if it is good. So I'll not track it. That's kind
Okay.
of where I got into, and I just removed all the Google Analytics
Okay.
tracking from the site.
Okay. But do you share blogs on social media or?
Yeah, so I I use only LinkedIn and Twitter, not any other social media. So whenever I write a small summary of that, post it to Twitter, copy
Mhm.
paste the same thing to LinkedIn. I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done. And I also have a Mailchimp pipeline. So I'm
Mhm.
using the free Mailchimp tier, and I have that subscribed. I'll send you the post to your inbox thingy. So
Okay.
I have like, I mean, all people I know, like 20 people who I know personally. They have just
Okay.
uh, 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 what's that? Good enough to. They felt that's good, and they subscribe, and it goes. I automated it, so wherever I post it at that evening, it goes out for all of them.
Oh.
That's all the marketing that goes in there.
Okay. Well, when I posted some of my blogs on Twitter, I found
Hmm.
something funny. Like the many people retweeted it, many people liked that post. But end of the
Yeah.
day, when I went back to my blog and checked how many came from Twitter, it was zero. People just liked and
Happens.
retweeted
It
without
happens. It
even
happens.
clicking that link.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing I have learned is obviously first couple of blocks when I was tracking, I was like full into on knowing like how many people are not even knowing like to pull people from like I posted in Reddit literally everywhere I could, and I also got a lot of hate. Obviously, Reddit being Reddit, they're like, this is shit. Can't help it. You'll have to get live with it. So I'm like, okay, something like it got removed and all of that, but
Oh.
it happens. You will have to be prepared for that.
But over time, you just started
Uh,
writing without caring about who reads
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. It's
Nice.
basically the again. This is not a, so my initial motive was to write every month, which if you see the dates now has not been fulfilled from the pandemic era, but it's been I try to write, and I whenever I think of something, I have a Trello board. I just go in there, drop that topic. If I feel like writing about it, I'll try to. If not,
Okay.
it lies there forever. I have like 4 or 5 items in my to-do list which I have not attended for 6 months or more. But that's kind of where it is.
Okay. Okay. Then change the topic. You have been
Yep.
freelancing for quite some time.
Yeah, that was mostly around this where I told I was writing technical blogs and I got interested to, which is basically the period where I was doing 11th, 12th and my engineering graduation.
Oh, okay. So during that time, 14 to 17, something.
Yeah, yeah. So it was basically website development. Like that time, people were trying to get, like everybody was coming to internet, were trying to come into internet.
Mhm.
So I thought, why not be part of it and help? Like, I knew a lot of organizations from my family, friends, and they had some business. So I kept, that was kind of what I did. Where like, oh, you have a business, but why do you not have a website? That's
Oh,
kind of it. Maybe it turned out to be creepy at some point, but I kept asking literally everyone, "Do you have a website? Let me do it for you." So um, I tried like typical WordPress stuff
mhm,
because it kind of pulled me into web development. That's kind of I
mhm.
had good some knowledge of PHP, so I was really bad at design. But you with WordPress, if you know, like you can buy themes, get some margin out of it, and do the content and all of that. So you don't have to spend a lot of time setting that up.
Okay.
I did for a couple of businesses, and then at some point it become
Mhm.
very tedious and there are a lot of people who are doing it, even though I had a vision to like maybe uh, like start a service company and all of that, but that obviously you are like 1920, you make ideas that might not work, right? So then I slowly moved on from there.
Okay. But like, what is the typical margin when you do a website as a
It's so
freelancer?
if you consider if you don't consider the time you have put, like now as an IT, you measure time, right? You
Yeah.
say this much per hour, but if you don't consider that, So I used to charge like 5 to 10K,
Okay.
and you get themes for 2 3K, and hosting domain will again cost you some 2 3K. Rest 3 4 thousand is for you to enjoy.
Okay.
And obviously, if you're doing engineering and if you're not seeing that much money around,
It's
that's
quite a
a
lot.
good amount. Yeah, quite a lot. But thing is, I'm not considering the whole night I spent
Yeah.
struggling around setting up the page. That's not considered. But that's a still for a beginner
Yeah.
who has just studying, good amount.
It's good.
And that I think uh, other than the money, it has added to a lot of experience talking to
Yeah.
people, understanding. I mean, if you ask somebody a website, they will obviously ask, why do I need a website? You will have to be able to
Hmm.
justify to them, which I might have failed miserably at a lot of points, but that kind of answers a lot of questions now. Oh,
Okay.
I know now because I had not known that time.
Okay. So you got a good sales experience as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't say sales, but at least to understand or to be able to answer some questions what the non-technical folks might ask you. Like, why do I
Okay.
need it? That's basically everybody asks, right? If you ask,
Yeah.
if you'll have to be know to know your things to answer someone why.
Yeah. And typically, people who don't have a website, like non-IT businesses, it's very difficult to convince them.
Yeah, very true. Been there.
That's true. So you have been working on serverless, like Handstack focuses on serverless.
Yes, yes.
What parts of serverless do you go into?
It's mostly like so. The one thing about which people often get confused is they tend to relate serverless only to Lambda or the compute part of the whole product. But product is like 20% is your compute, right? I
Yeah.
mean, the numbers are vague, but then you have to get storage, you have to get the application, all of that. So where we come in is as a bit different. Like there are a lot of companies which do serverless on an architectural level. They say, for example, you come in and say, I want to build an e-commerce platform, and they say this is the architecture you can deploy in AWS, Azure, Google. Like that's kind of because they are focused on getting your compute storage, all of that within the serverless environment, right? But where we kind of think at least we are better at is if you have a product and you don't know how to execute it, we do the user experience design, we do the design, we do the product development, we give you the whole suite of things so that even being an consulting company, we can deliver a good product that looks good for your users or you, whoever, also makes sense on a technical basis. And with respect to AWS, it's been mostly like architecting end-to-end things on Lambda, or if it is storage, then you have uh, Aurora serverless services, Amplify, the whole suite of Amplify and AppSync, all of that. Like that's been mostly our tech stack, but it has varied. Like it's not 100. It might not be always 100% used. Like maybe using uh, Aurora serverless is not, you are not expecting like a lot of data traffic, but you only expect compute. So you put in just an RDS server, which is limited to some RAM, some memory class, and you architect the Lambda or the compute such a way that at any none point it will not bottleneck RDS. It need not scale. RDS need not scale with Lambda.
Okay.
That's kind of the, it kind of varies depending on the use case, but we've been around that tech stack.
Okay. So you give them the solution and like architecture solution and implementation, everything is yours.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
user just comes to you, the customer just comes to you, tells you his problem, and then you
Mhm.
take over from there.
Yep, yep. And but that's not the only thing that we are do. But like there are a lot of people where they already have a product, they have a tech team, they want to say migrate or build a new feature or just to explore serverless. So in that case, there will be a lot of communication where they'll have to understand what serverless is, why this will help them.
Okay.
Obviously, there will be question, and maybe we'll have to. Yeah, first thing is not everything might suit serverless. So there
Hmm.
would be trade-off made. We'll have to there will be communication, and they have to understand what they build, because if they have a tech team, they are going to maintain it for the longest time, right? Not us. So at that time, obviously there will be communication. They get upskilled, and then at some point they will take over and continue the development or whatever.
Okay, that's interesting. So,
Yeah.
as an engineering manager, you focus only on the development part of it, or you're also involved in the like getting the product?
It's mostly both. Like,
Okay.
for example, if at the initial stage, it's we don't involve like very beginning. Say somebody has come, they have a like some people will have a like end-to-end product written out thoughtfully, flow diagrams, all of that. But some people might just have some aspect of that. So there will be a lot of discussions where we will have to ask, how should this work? Where should it stop? Like the features, obviously, if you think of product, whenever you get an idea, that could be a feature, right? But for the timeline and how much they are aiming to gather at some point, like say you call MVP, all of that, right?
Mhm.
It has to be limited to some point. So there will be a lot of discussions where we will say, if this is needed, what are you expecting out of this? And especially for user experience design, our designers will might have a longer conversations where, how are you expecting users to be? What's the audience like? There's a lot of, so at that point, the all the developers might not involve. It would be us, me, or the founders or our CXOs. They'll have more of a conversations. At some point, okay, we know now. Then we decide the timelines. We split the task. We assign the developers, and then it goes on from there. Then the developers might have some questions, or they'll start implementation.
Okay. So, what kind of skills does this take? I'm sure you know AWS, serverless, and web design.
Mhm.
But apart from that, I'm sure it requires a lot of skills that are not
Yeah.
documented.
Yes. So it's mostly like on a non-technical basis, it's mostly understanding what the client wants, right? Which is a vague statement to say, but once you're there and you get to like start talking to people, you will understand what they're trying to do. That's
Okay.
the non-technical side of it. Technically, obviously, we have people who are very skilled in design, like user experience or UI design, all of that. And then there are people. So our tech stack is been mostly JavaScript based, meaning
Mhm.
front end is React, other frameworks around React, and basically JavaScript based frameworks. And backend also we use Node.js, TypeScript
Mhm.
for back like writing lambdas and other stuff. And cloud, AWS, if not Azure and Google. But the skill set is most, our developers are mostly full stack or focused towards front end, back end, or AWS side of it. So it, and depending on the project, we do mix and match between how many designers, at what point developer will come in, and what implementation does do, who does what. So it's a combination of designers, front end developers, back end developers, and an engineering manager or a solution architect who's getting help with the infrastructure side of it or the architecture side of it at the beginning stage.
Okay. So, like, what are the most irritating parts you feel like among your in this line?
I think the annoying part is the first, say, 1 month where
Okay.
you'll have to be sure what you're doing. Because if you screw up the first month, the entirety of product, which maybe the development cycle might be 2 months, 3 months, or 1 year, that we might end up ruining the whole cycle, right? So the first 1 month wherein you have to be sure that what exactly we built in the next couple of months, where when I say sure, the customer has to exactly know what they are getting out of it or what they are
Okay.
expecting out of it. If they have a like if they start with a vague thing, it's our duty to be like help to understand to get to a concrete set of requirement. But most of them, luckily, like the people come up with the which matured required diagram. They are very particular about, okay, this is what I meant. But even there are gray areas, right? And before we start a development, we had to be clear about the gray areas. Like,
Okay.
is this how the user will go? Is this because that's a lot of communication, and especially when we are all remote, working remote, the meetings can go hour and hour, and that's where it gets a bit tricky. But I wouldn't say it's a lot of irritation, but a lot of to and fro. So
Okay.
there a lot of time spent might not like, and also not everything might make a lot of sense, right? So to and fro obviously might not be 100% productive, all of that. That's at
Okay.
least in my opinion is
But you
bit of
have
a
to be
tricky
very
part.
careful in that time, otherwise the
Yes,
next 1 year is messed up.
yep, yep. We don't
Yes.
want to be pissing off our developers as well as the client
Yeah.
together. That's a very odd place to be in.
Yeah. So you said your clients mostly have concrete requirements, but
Mhm.
at times like concrete requirements can get messy because they want something that is irrational.
Yeah.
And you have such
Mm.
problems as well
That's very common.
out of the.
Yeah, that's part of the job.
And
It has
you have
become a
to
part.
come to a conclusion and decide what is feasible
Yes,
and what is something concrete.
yes, yes. And I think the silver lining there is it's a learning for us to understand how to cut down things to make it simpler.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, you want every complex problem can be viewed in a simpler perspective, right?
Okay.
So it kind of become a very good learning to get to that, which I think I'm not there yet, but it's a learning from people around you. You get to pick things, and the other thing is also looking at their perspective, you learn a lot. It's not just
Okay.
our what's the word, our circle that we have put in. Their input is also very helpful, even though it is maybe irrational or vague. Sometimes we felt okay, we never thought of that, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of win-win, but not always.
Okay. I saw you also interested in photography and guitar. Do you get time for all
Uh,
this?
I mean, guitar is not something that I have interest or know to do. Like none, I'm very least at any given point. I'm a least creative person in the room. I like the. I think if you're referring to the photo of guitar
Yeah.
that was in our office, it's a unused guitar that's lying out there in the office.
Oh, okay.
But photography, yeah, I have bit of an interest. Rather, like if you exclude the technical interest, that's kind of where the go-to thing is, which
Okay.
is also not professional or very professional level. All the photos are taken my phone, and that's mostly
Okay.
what it is. And
Those were taken
uh,
by phone.
yeah, all of them. Not,
Wow.
I don't have a professional camera.
Okay. Nice. So, what would be your advice to upcoming graduates? How should they shape
Um,
their career?
so just to like, if I were to look back and see when is it the time where I was getting graduated, right? I think I happened to meet right people at the right time. I wouldn't want to put luck in there, but it is what it is.
Mhm.
So, and the people who I met were really helpful to understand where I was going and to guide me.
Mhm.
It includes like the mentors or the people around us, the friends, all of that, right? But if you think of it, it's not if you just have to be open-minded. That's the
Mhm.
first. That's a bit now vague, but essential thing is you'll have to be open-minded. You can't be opinionated on, like, especially when you're graduating. You can't be like, okay, I'm studying Python. I'll I'll spend my rest of my life just doing Python, which might turn out really good for you, but not for everyone, right?
Okay.
So you'll have to open minded and understand, okay, I'm learning this. You'll have, and obviously the academia, we all learn from there, but we do critique the academia, right? Because it
Mhm.
is maybe it depends on where you're from. You'll have to be asking questions to yourself, doing the research yourself. And at this day and age, you have internet, you have tons of hours of free material out there in YouTube, right? So go around there, dig yourself. Like obviously that has helped more like most of the people we have, including our us, we knew things. We know things because we googled it, not because we were forcefully
Yeah.
told that like this is what it is, because we were curious enough. So it's mostly drilled down to know what you are going to do. Like obviously the technique, the problem also I see again, I think this you mentioned in the early conversation is, as when you are like say you decided you want to become a software engineer, learning, or you're doing computer science graduation or information science, whatever, the main thing is we don't translate or relate to what we end up doing in a company, right? For example, if you take a typical software services company, there is front end development, back end development, DevOps, architecture, all of that. But these categories, and also if you take a wider service company, there are support, there is technical support, there is non-technical support, L1, L2, L3, depending on what company you're from, right? Uh, all of this I figured out first after like joining a service company and being spending like good for 1.5 years, not during the 4 wide years where I had a lot of time, right? So that's where the missing part is. You will have to understand where you're going into. Maybe ask, obviously, uh, beat anyone, people who are in, say, your seniors, your friends, ask around, trouble them to know what they are doing, try to understand or try to relate, like what you are studying or what you want to be, and try to relate to what they are doing or what their company is doing. Try to get the relation done, and try to, then if you know, okay, I want to be what he's doing, then ask him how did he get there, how did they get there, and try to understand, fill the gap, right? That's mostly what it's been for me, and I think that works for everyone. And one good thing I see is a lot of graduates are making best use of the internet, like YouTube. There are a lot of communities out there. There are courses available for free, paid, all of that. I think I've seen a good progress made from last 1 or 2 years where people are getting in there, and it feels really happy where we are hiring people and they tend to have explored, like fresh graduates, they have explored a way lot than what I was graduating. That kind of makes me happy, like okay, people are reaching there. That's good. They're not as confused that I was. That's good, right? Good to know, kind of thing.
Like as you said, from YouTube, you have tons of videos. That on any topic you search, you have a lot of video results that you get.
Mhm.
But one problem is that 90% of those videos are nonsense. People have
True.
just put something there for the heck of it.
Yeah.
How do you filter out? Like,
I think it takes good time of regret to get there. So I think so. This has been like I know a couple of people in the industry like who I have not met. Like there are people there I follow in Twitter. Like there are good people who do content creation. They have their own course platforms or do YouTube. Like there is Traverse Media, or there is Level Up Tutorials, which I think by Scott Tolinsky. Like there are a lot of people like that. If you follow them around, obviously identifying them is a big task,
yeah.
but I think at some point you will start to realize. I don't obviously. I think I was not in the era of getting YouTube and trying to figure out things, but nowadays, due to the popularity of internet and all that, it has gone. As you said, there are a lot of nonsense out there, but I don't think I have a valid answer or justify that answer where I don't know how to filter it. It's been part of like obviously if you interact with people and try to get around that course, you will at some point you'll realize okay this is might be wrong, but
Mm.
don't I would say don't be demotivated by that, or talk to people like okay I'm referring to this course, is it good, like ask reviews. And if you're like spending money on it, go to Udemy, there are reviews out there which are
Yeah.
not hopefully non-biased. So
Mm.
you obviously, I mean, see, the whole idea of reviews has made a lot of us lives easy, right? You don't have to take. You go to Amazon even to buy like a phone. You do like 2 months of research. So why not to do the same thing for the career, which will help you. The phone might last for 2 years, but the career will live with you like for the whole entirety of your life, right? So why not do some research more there?
Okay.
It takes a time, but I don't think I have an answer for that.
Basically, over time, you have identified some good sources,
Yeah,
and then
and
you tend
I'm
to follow
sticking
them.
to, yeah, I'm sticking to those people. Like
Okay.
it's mostly around Twitter. I think my 90% of my Twitter is mostly people who are working in industry, like creators of React, creators of this framework, that framework, AWS enthusiasts, developer relations people, all of that.
Okay. Oh, that was nice. You have given very good pointers of how one can keep yourself up to date
Yep.
and
Yeah.
about your journey is really
Mhm.
interesting.
And just sorry,
Yes, sir.
one thing I would want to add, which I learned from my friend, is uh, if are going full into tech, choose the right people and don't take opinions from them. They might, like somebody just tweet out saying, okay, React is good, Angular is bad. Don't stick to their opinions. Find out yourself, get your opinions straight. But I wouldn't say don't follow them. Follow them. It's for the fun of it, right? People argue about literally everything every time, but you'll
Yes.
have to stick to what makes good for you. That's where it is. And you, like, following right set of people also gives you an idea of what is going on, because especially during, if you're in your room for the 24 hours of time, in this time you're not meeting, going out, you're not going to, there are no conferences happening, there are no meetups happening, it's all online. So having a good community around you in your online presence is will help you.
Yeah. Online presence and online communities are the way to go now.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that's going away anytime soon.
Yeah. At least a couple of years we have to live with this.
Yep.
Okay. That was really nice.
Yeah.
Thanks a
Thank you.
lot for your time.
No problem.